Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another segment. So, today we're going to be talking about the tools of the trade when it comes to podcasting. Number one being the one that most people want to talk about, which is this guy right here, a microphone. So, a microphone is quintessential to actually capturing that sound, and there are two main types that you are going to see and utilize when podcasting. Number one being the dynamic microphone. So this is a dynamic microphone, and this, number two, is a condenser microphone. The difference is how they sound, actually how they capture the sound overall, but how they sound is very big as well. A dynamic microphone being smoother and velvetier, capturing some of that lower end, giving you that broadcasty type of voice, and a condenser microphone being a lot brighter, so giving you more of that poppy sound. It captures the highs a lot easier than a dynamic microphone. Now, there are pros and cons to each of these. The dynamic microphone is a lot better for environments that are not treated. So, for example, if you're in a room that doesn't have a lot of sound treatment, well, then a dynamic microphone is going to do better because it's going to reject the sound a lot better. It doesn't capture as much as of the room tone like a condenser microphone would. However, the downside to a dynamic microphone is that you have to be relatively close to the microphone. The closer, the better. Being on top of the microphone is actually what you want. It takes advantage of something called the proximity effect, which we'll talk about later. But that is one of the caveats with a dynamic microphone. With a condenser microphone, however, you can put it a little bit farther away from you and get away with it because it is more sensitive. That, once again, goes towards the room tone, but if you are in a treated room, then it's not that much of an issue. You can get away with putting the microphone a little bit farther away from you. You do, however, need something called phantom power, which we'll talk about in the next module when it comes to techniques. So this microphone needs to be powered. So you need to supply it with power for it to actually work. Without power, it will not work. So those are the two microphones that you have at your disposal. As you see, I usually use a dynamic microphone because I like to have that lower, more velvety presence in the lows and the mids, and I usually end up attenuating or cutting out the highs anyway. So I like a dynamic microphone. It's a little bit less EQ work for me to do in post. Now, another tool of the trade that you're going to need is some type of pop filter or a microphone cover. So pop filters help to get rid of those that burst of wind that comes when you say pa or ba. It hits the microphone's capsule and it makes a plosive. So it makes an actual sound that is really difficult to get rid of in post. So what you usually use is some type of pop filter or some type of cover, just like this. And what it effectively does is it breaks up that wind so that it does not actually hit the capsule, and you more so get the actual sound instead of the wind hitting the capsule of the microphone. So that is a must. They're really cheap. It's like $5 to $10. And I'm going to put my list of recommendations and all of this equipment down below for you to check out. So the third thing that you are going to need when it comes to podcasting is some type of audio interface, whether that be a field recorder or an audio interface, a more traditional one that you actually connect to a computer. These are going to be the devices that actually record the sound that you are creating. So you plug your microphones into them and they actually capture or transmit that data to your computer. These are important because, well, you need something to actually capture and store that data. The microphone doesn't store it, it just passes that information along to your actual audio interface. Now, there are a bunch of different things that you have to think about when it comes to an audio interface. One of the most important being how many inputs can you actually put into the microphone or to the audio interface. So can you only put in one, making it so that you have to be solo or you have to get two people speaking into the same microphone? Can you do two? Can you do three? What are the actual preamps like? So are they noisy? When you turn up that gain, do you hear a lot of noise coming in the recordings? All of these things are things that you have to think about before you actually purchase that audio interface. Now, we're not going to go hugely in depth with each of these individual things, but we will touch on them individually in the next module. Obviously, the next two things come together. You're going to need a computer and a DAW or an NLE. A DAW being digital audio workstation. So if you're just working with audio, you can get a DAW. An NLE being a non-linear editor. So it's for when you are working with video. Now, you don't need a supercomputer. If you're working with video, depending on the settings, you are going to need a pretty beefy computer. But if you're just working with audio, then it should be a lot easier for you to actually get started. I will put down some recommendations for some computers on the lower end and then on the higher end, depending on what you are working with. But the personal DAW that I use is a program called Pro Tools. The free version is Pro Tools First. Still absolutely amazing. You can get some great stuff done in Pro Tools First, or you could even use Audacity. Audacity is a free software. It's been around for years, and it has some absolutely amazing tools for you to get things sounding amazing. The other option is for the video editor. I use Davinci Resolve. There is a free version. The free version of Davinci Resolve is pretty much all that you're going to need. It's absolutely incredible when it comes to video editing, especially since they have the Davinci Resolve 16 and they are in beta for their 17 right now. It works absolutely amazing for video editing, and it's a really intuitive workflow. So, those are usually the tools that you're going to need whenever it comes to podcasting. You need your microphone. You need your audio interface, you need your computer and your DAW, and then you need some type of pop filter or some type of microphone cover so that way you can cut out those plosives. Thank you guys so much for joining on this one, and I will see you in the next module.